Hello. I totally agree with you about Portrait of Jane. It's a beautiful film, and my main question is, what kind of influence did a movie like Rocco and His Brothers have on, say, Raging Bull?
Oh, very strong influence for me. Rocco and His Brothers was the first, it was the second Visconti film. I saw Senso at the Bleecker Street Cinema in the late 60s. And then...
Do you remember what time of day it was?
Yeah, it was like, well, it's an experience. It was in the early evening. It was in the early evening. Yeah, because daytime you come out in this white light. It ruins the whole dream. At night you can still, meander around. It's like great. And then, no, Rocco and His Brothers was like, an extraordinary experience. Katina Pazanou, the mother, the whole thing. My parents came to see it. We just went on and on with the film. It's still one of the great ones for me. I think there was no doubt that Robert De Niro wasn't aware of it. I showed him the film. I showed him on a little video we had of it, and it opened up for us certain possibilities for the characters to go even further in Raging Bull. It certainly did. We felt. I'd seen the film maybe 4 times, 5 times before I showed it to him. And he says, "Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Let's, I think we can do anything we want then." So yeah.
Is he usually? Are you at the point with him, or have you reached the point with him where he knows what you mean, where you barely even have to explain it?
We reached that kind of on Raging Bull by that, by that point.
Yes.
Hello, sir. I'm going to take you back about 25 years when Mean Streets premiered. Let's go back. Mardick Martin was an instructor of mine. He was an English writing instructor,
Sure.
and he co-wrote Mean Streets, he had told me, with you in NYU. And he mentored me that semester, and then sent me a postcard from LA saying that you were doing a sequel to it, and I never heard anything after that. And I wondered what happened to him.
Well, that was a Mardick? Hmm? Well, Mardick is still in he's teaching. He just came to New York last year. Some of his students are doing a little documentary on him, and he wanted me to be in it and everything. I was going to do a documentary on Mardick over the years, because like with Italian American, these other documentaries I did, because it's a very extraordinary American story where he came from Baghdad in Iraq. He's Armenian, and how it's a long story, but he finally made it over to America. It was like America, like Kazan's film, in a way. So we were very friendly, and he helped me work a great deal on Mean Streets. It took about 4 years on the script. And he's still out there working as a teacher, really.
But you never did a sequel.
No, we never did that. We didn't understand. That's in every clause. That's a clause in every contract for a film. If there's a sequel, this and this. So we started thinking, let's do a sequel. We took it seriously. So.
Mean Streets too. Think about it. Yes.
Hello, sir. I'm a huge fan of yours, and I think that The King of Comedy is the best movie I've ever seen. I love it so much. And, but it's not, in all honesty,
but
the
you're
most...
doing it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
I am.
It's great. Well, that's what it is. Sorry.
But it's not, in all honesty, the most widely seen movie. And I was wondering if you could expand on why you think one movie, as opposed to any other movie, clicks with a popular audience?
Well, I think in the case of King of Comedy, the collaboration of Robert De Niro and myself, not that we had planned to do those films together, it just happened that way. But by the time we did King of Comedy and Raging Bull had come out, King of Comedy came out in February of '83, so the world had changed. E.T. had been out. There were a lot of different things, and the world had changed, and they expected De Niro Scorsese film. They didn't expect that they were taken aback by it, really. We've got a very nice, very good review from Vincent Canby, the New York Times, I remember, and a good one from LA. But the rest was very bad, and nobody went to see it. They reacted against it. It's only now soon to be coming out on DVD. But it seemed to have picked up over the years, particularly on television, when people saw it on television. And I find a number of people come up to me, and there's been a following that the film has had. And it was a very hard film for me to make, but ultimately it seems to have carried over the years.
Yes.
But,
hey, Marty, my name's John Cacamisi. I think we're a little paisan here. I'm pretty much all Sicilian.
Oh, okay.
I kind of do the same thing you do all the time with my hands. That's why I try and keep it in my pocket, as they say. But I think one of your underrated films would be Color of Money, because to take such a great film like Robert Roslin's The Hustler, which to me was my one of my all-time favorite. And what you said is the way the character had to be, if you were going to do this film the right way to give it justice, is you had to give him 25 years later that there's no way he would be able to get out of the business, you know, the hustling. And that's where you had to start from, which to me was just brilliant to start from a place like that. And to get that performance out of someone like Paul Newman, who can't do anything wrong, and you made him in this.
We love Paul. He's great.
Well, sorry, a little biased,
The Hustler, he's
but
great.
my
The Hustler
point
is-
is, 25 years later, you make a sequel to a movie that maybe not everybody knew, and to have the acting in this, how well it was done. I've always thought of something like Travis Bickle 30 years later.
You got to talk to Paul Schrader.
And, I mean, De Niro's still here, you got Sybil Shepherd, you got...
It's a different thing.
I mean,
It's a different
I
thing.
don't think he would,
Yeah.
my point is, I don't think he would ever, at the end of the movie, he looks in the mirror, I want to know what's going on. I really do. And even if it's 30 years later, I mean...
Well, I'll talk to Paul, but we've talked about it over the years, and I think it came out to, we're somewhat different people now, I think.
I want to see if you can answer 5 questions.
Okay, I'm
in 5
going to
minutes.
be really fast, I promise. Yes, young man.
How did your work with the independent Roger Corman early in your career affect your later filmography, if at all?
How do we work together? Well, he saw...
How did it affect your filmography?
How did it affect my films?
Yeah.
But without having made the film Boxcar Bertha, which was an exploitation film in 1972 for Roger, I had a schedule, and I had to finish on time, and I had to design the whole picture real fast, and all that sort of thing. I never would have made Mean Streets, and never would have really understood production, really. So that was a key thing. I had to go sort of through his university, so to speak.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about what is the best way for someone such as myself who collects vintage films to keep collecting them. I got like a couple of years subscription to Columbia House of Video, and now I'm looking at DVDs. So what do you think is the best technology to
I think DVD
invest
is the
in?
best. Yeah, DVD is the best. And now the DVD burners are coming out.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Hi, I was wondering, what was it like to work with Akira Kurosawa on Dreams?
How old are you?
It's a good question. Well, there's a longer version of the story, but I can't tell it because we got to finish. But he wanted me to be in the film. I wanted him to sign the what was it, that leaflet or whatever it was that I was doing for Color Fading. I wanted his name on it, and we got a meeting. Audie Buck got a meeting with us, and he was in his hotel room in New York because he was at the New York Film Festival. And I met him, and he said, "Okay, speak." And he sat there, and he put his watch down. And so I talked very fast about how we got to save film. And so years later, he told Francis Coppola, he said, the guy I have in mind for Van Gogh is the way this guy Scorsese spoke to me that day. And so Francis says, ask him. And he did. And so I memorized the lines, and I thought I'd try to do it. I found it, an extraordinary experience. He used 2 cameras on tracks, and he zoomed in and out. He was tracking on them. He was zooming in and out. And he shot the scene all in one. So that it was 3 pages of dialogue, so you never knew when you were on close-up or not, so you didn't get conscious of that. But I found he was very precise, and this is the interesting thing. I asked the producer, I said, what do I do here and I move from here? He goes, just do what you feel, just go from here to here to here. So, okay, fine. We do the rehearsal. Next thing I know, Kurosawa talks to the producer comes up to me and says, when you go here, move 2 steps to your left, move that, and everything was down to the point, and I did it. I memorized it right away. So when you see Kurosawa's film like High and Low, for example, and you see that widescreen, you see Mifune here, yeah, planned.
Yes.
It's all planned by him.
Hi, I'd like to thank you for your body of work, first of all. And, of course, thank everyone here. But what would you say about the influence that cinema violence and behavior of the character actually has on society, as opposed to how an artist portrays it as the society actually affecting the art, and the art actually showing what society actually is at that
I
time.
give up.
Yeah.
You can't answer this.
No, I know. It's a hard one. I think, no, I mean, for me,
Yeah.
you know, don't forget when I made films like Taxi Driver or Mean Streets or Raging Bull or even Goodfellas, I never expected, they were films, particularly in the 70s, there was no video at the time. I never expected them to be shown complete on television. You should see the TV versions of those in the 70s were hilarious. And so it was made for, you know, adults. They're made for adults. I mean, kids shouldn't go see Goodfellas at a certain, they really shouldn't. I mean, they have to be a little older. You know, so I always make for a certain audience, and I try, my problem is that I try to be as, problem meaning with the industry and with the way things are, is that I try to be as honest as possible to the world that I'm depicting. And so the violence very often, as honest as possible, the violence, I think. You know, the thing with the head and the vice is a true story.
But you said you could do without it if you had to do it again.
I could do without the
Vice.
optical, no, not the vice, but the makeup, the special makeup routine, where they had this thing that took us 3 hours. Oh, I said, come on, I'm shooting this. What was interesting there is that Pesci said, I had to, it wasn't like some evil villain he said, let me find a way, and finally, he came up with it, which is really interesting. He was in a situation, he got to get information from this guy. He beat him up for 2 days and 2 nights. And, you know, he said, look, I really appreciate your strength. Please don't let me do this. And so that was the humanity of it, you see, in a way. Very strange.
Yes.
Like that, but...
Last question.
How you doing? My name is Jesse. I'm a singer-songwriter in New York, and I had a bit part in Bringing Out the Dead, which was an honor. I get to play a club doorman. It was a lot of fun. Probably asked you a lot of questions those 2 days. Had CBGB's, but
oh, yeah, the club, yeah.
being that, I guess, you know, music in all your films, and especially rock music, has been such a big part of all the films, and you know, something like Jumpin' Jack Flash, which I've heard a million times. When I see it in Mean Streets, it's like the first time I've heard that song. So it turned me on to a lot of songs that I didn't know. And I was wondering, in this day and age, being it's not the 70s,
Yeah.
what music, you know, he knows where this is going.
I'm so sorry to say, I really don't, I've lost contact with lost a connection with most modern music, most pop music. I really don't. I listen to older stuff, and I still get, in many cases, I still get that inspiration from a lot of the older music, you know.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to agree. Maybe that's why I'm asking this question. But, you know, you seem
maybe.
to always have your head in,
It
from
may be.
Bad Brains to Sex Pistols.
Yeah, from the Bad Brains,
to,
exactly.
You know,
Sex Pistols, yes, yes.
so
Even
whatever.
I agree.
You know, the Clash, you know, that sort of thing.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.